What the Boy Scouts set up was the perfect cover for someone who did want to take advantage of a child.
Grown men are with young boys in a tent alone in the woods is a recipe for disaster.
It's just devastating. It really makes you question, not believe, not trust.
So anyone who unfortunately was sexually abused as a child in Boy Scouts now has less than a week to file a claim against them in court. Time is of the essence. Nicole Kreitz has been working this story since before the organization officially filed for bankruptcy.
That Chapter 11 filing forced the courts to set a deadline for any further claims as they consolidate assets. And the number of survivors coming forward is already far outpacing anything we've seen with the Catholic Church sex crimes cases.
I've tried to erase it, put it behind me, best I can.
Michael Clifton knows now there were a lot of red flags he missed growing up.
That's him with his back turned.
He saved some mementos from Boy Scouts and wishes he could erase his encounters with troop leader Craig Cowan.
I would see him going to bed and saying, well, come here, and he'd grab somebody, pull them in there, and, like they needed to be there.
At 14, Michael was the oldest in his troop and feels guilty he didn't know better to protect the younger boys on camping trips.
He said that he slept naked because it was the only way you should do it, stay warm. You'd stay warmer. That's what he told us, but he would do it every time, every outing. I didn't even know that was inappropriate.
Michael and 5 other boys later helped Cowan move from Redlands, California to Bullhead City, Arizona.
And that's when it all happened.
He says Cowan gave them alcohol before bedtime.
I wake up to someone crouched beside the bed, crawled up on his knees, reaching up under the covers with his hand in my privates.
He says the same thing happened to his younger brother and the other boys.
Then all of a sudden, boom, the dark side of it comes out, and it's just like, wow, devastating.
Boy Scouts created this trusting environment. It was really apple pie and good for everybody. That was an open door for individuals who would use that trust to take advantage of kids.
Marcy Hamilton and her team with the nonprofit group Child USA reviewed thousands of cases of sex abuse in scouting and found more than 71% of the victims were abused multiple times, and almost 2/3 of the accused abusers stayed in scouting after being reported to Boy Scouts.
It's just wrong all the way around. It's terrible.
Michael says they confronted Cowan, got out of there, and when they went home, figured that was the end of it.
I didn't even dream he would have another troop.
There was not a lot of parenting going on in my household.
Scott Powell was 11 when he joined Craig Cowan's Boy Scout troop in Bullhead City.
Yeah, he came off as a father figure. He had a Pong game. I think he had the first microwave oven in Bullhead City. So he was kind of this cool guy that took an interest in all aspects of my life.
Scott says Cowan was a physician's assistant and gave all the boys physicals before summer camp.
So he said, okay, I need to do the hernia exam again. Then from there, he started to manually manipulate me. And I got a little freaked out. He said, it's built up in there, we got to get it out, or it's going to eventually affect your ability to have kids in the future.
He says Cowan was persistent with the ruse and did the same thing 4, sometimes 6 times a week for 4 years.
Back then, school counselors, nobody ever talked to kids about what's appropriate and what's not.
At one point, he and his mom moved in with Cowan, relocating to Henderson, Nevada. Then she moved out and got married, leaving Scott behind.
I didn't know anything about foster homes. I didn't know anything about where I might end up living if not there.
Time doesn't heal. 50 years later, it doesn't matter. The pain's still there.
Attorney Ken Rothweiler is with the Abused in Scouting Coalition, representing up to 50,000 survivors.
Like the Catholic Church, the Boy Scouts knew about these pedophiles going back years.
BSA declined our request for an interview, saying the Child USA study is biased because it's funded by Abused in Scouting firms. They released a statement saying, "We care deeply about all victims and sincerely apologize to anyone harmed during their time in scouting. We are outraged there have been times when individuals took advantage of our programs to abuse innocent children."
Nobody knew more about the risk to your child than the Boy Scouts, and they weren't telling the parents and they weren't keeping the next child safe. And so that's recklessness. That's not just negligence.
The Boy Scouts' confidential perversion files go back more than 100 years. Shortly after forming in 1910, BSA started tracking convicted pedophiles and allegations of abuse in their ranks. They finally adopted a two-deep rule in 1987, requiring 2 adults at all activities, but didn't start running background checks for another 7 years and waited until 2010 to adopt a policy for mandatory reporting to law enforcement.
I did see him on the news.
Scott says he tried to report his abuse years later when he saw Cowan being arraigned for felony child porn charges in 1996. Cowan was convicted, but not for anything he did in scouting. He died in 2009.
The only way that I could see justice happening is to undo what was done. Anything short of that is not justice, it's just punishment.
Scott says no settlement can make up for what Cowan stole from him.
My whole junior high and high school experience.
Yeah, that's really tough. That's real tough. I mean, that really bothers me.
Michael is still deeply disturbed how widespread the abuse was across the organization.
I wish I would have known to, I'd been more vocal about, scream something, to somebody. Where I live now, there's a big BSA camp over here, but every time I see it, I go by it, it's like the hair on the back of my neck. I'm like, God, I hope the kids are okay.
BSA says their Chapter 11 filing will help them restructure to carry out its mission for years to come.
I've lived with it for a lot of years. It's just devastating.
Like Scott, Michael's ready for it to all be over so he can put this behind him for good and hopes others will come forward to find healing as well.
I hope that it helps.
Child USA is also working with survivors from the Catholic Church and USA Gymnastics to put out a new gold standard for safety requirements institutions working with children must pass to be insured. And again, if you or anyone you know was abused in scouting, you only have until Monday, November 16th to file a claim before the bankruptcy deadline. We've got a link with all you need to know on our news app and website now.